Kirby in the Forgotten Land was a ride, let me tell you, and the ending of the game definitely took an approach that I didn't expect to happen. Well, if you played any Kirby game, you probably would have expected something crazy like this to end the game. Nevertheless, it was a crazy ending that also ties in some lore from past games, and also a secret ending, whether it's canon or not, has a really cool connection to obviously the last Kirby game, Kirby Star Allies. So I want to go over both endings, even the extra ending, and talk about exactly what this means for the story and what actually happens at the end of Kirby in the Forgotten Land. And of course, this goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it because there's gonna be people that comment it. Yes, this video has spoilers. We're talking about the entire end of the game, the entire extra ending, all the details, and even the details at the end of the final Coliseum. Yeah, we're getting nitty gritty with this thing. But before we get started, at the end of this month on April 29th, Nintendo Switch Sports is released. I didn't realize it was this soon, but yes. But also, I am working with Best Buy and Nintendo to partner with all the sales for Nintendo Switch Sports. So if you want to purchase this game yourself, do so with my special link in the description through Best Buy, and it will help support me a lot. I cannot thank all of you guys enough for helping me with the Kirby game. Now, let's do the same with Nintendo Switch Sports. All the links are in the description down below. Now let's get on to the story of Kirby in the Forgotten Land. Now the story here is pretty basic. Kirby and his friends get sucked up into some type of dimensional rift that opens up in the sky, and it brings in a whole bunch of the residents from Dreamland and brings them all into this weird forgotten land. And we really don't know where this is pretty much the entirety of the game. It never does tell us what planet or what area of the galaxy this is at. It could be a planet that we've seen before in past Kirby games, but we wouldn't know. But anyways, we arrive at this planet having to save all the Waddle Dees and meeting a new friend named Elfilin. Kirby and Elfilin travel the world to find all the Waddle Dees and eventually come up to King Dedede, who is mind controlled at the time, and eventually is able to get his hands on Elfilin at the very last second. It's actually really funny how he's scooting in the background towards Kirby. Kirby's then by himself looking for Elfilin, finding a fake one with Silly Dillo, then eventually making his way to Redgar Forbidden Land. This place looked like it used to be the main financial district of this world, the main area where the government lied, important business buildings, and also obviously different factories to help run this entire world. But eventually at the base of the volcano, Kirby runs into a struggling King Dedede, which now has a giant primal mask on him in the shape of a boar, giving him the ability of once again Mass Dedede. He swings these fiery hammers around and tries to kill Kirby, but Kirby's able to knock the mask off and free him from his brain imprisonment from whatever type of mind control that he was under. Kirby then goes to make his way to the elevator that he finds in the back of the room and go explore to see what the heck this even is. And as he's doing so, a whole army of beast packs start rushing towards King Dedede and the Waddle Dees. King Dedede makes a sacrifice for his fellow Waddle Dee and decides to square up against the beast pack, and I guess he beats them. We really don't see or hear from him again to the very end where he's just laying in our town all calmly, but I guess he wins this battle. We then make it to a factory set at the very top of the volcano, the highest peak of this forgotten land, the highest point and the end of Kirby's journey. We then get a little voiceover playing of some woman describing exactly what's going on with this world and kind of giving us the loop as to what's going on and where Kirby is actually headed to. This seems to be a tourist attraction where it allows tourists to come up into this lab and see the giant specimen that they have been able to capture. Well, what is this specimen? The only thing that we know about this specimen right now is that the name is IDF-86, which is just a weird lab name that they gave this creature, but this creature actually invaded this forgotten land a long time ago. I guess it teleported itself through dimensional rifts, which it has the capability of doing so, and appearing in this land. And this creature was able to cause havoc amongst everything. There's no clear reason why they were so angry and why it was causing havoc amongst this world, but somehow this world band together and was able to capture it, which still blows my mind how they were able to capture this thing. I mean, seriously, it was like one of the strongest things I've ever seen Kirby have to fight, and it's just weird that some people in lab coats were able to capture this thing in a jar. But they did. It also mentioned that this creature has spatial teleportation ability, which they turn into their planetary teleportation technology, which we know as the Dimensional Rift. And normally, it's not the creature itself that's able to summon these, but some type of power that they have or have obtained from the world. So this is very interesting that this creature can actually, hone this ability himself without any special equipment. After 30 years of research on this creature, a warp experiment incident occurred, which actually split the creature into two separate entities. This separated them into Fargo and Elfilin. As one was still captured, Elfilin was able to make his escape and traverse the world. Elfilin was never able to be recovered, and in the time being, Fargo sat and sat and sat in a dormant state, still being experimented on from the people of this world. Kirby's then able to make his way to the final floor and eventually lay his eyes on the specimen known as ID F86. But I do want to add just how amazingly the hype level from the music and the scenery of this scene is before Kirby walks into this lab. I played this ending maybe 5 times and I get chills walking down this hall every time.
Specimen ID F86.
Kirby then enters the lab, but then is face to face with somebody blocking this containment center. A giant lion, and not just any ordinary lion. This is Leongar, the leader of the Beast Pack. Leon tells Kirby that the Great One, referring to the creature behind him, is actually missing its second half to become full again, and that is his goal to bring them back together so that he can have the miraculous power. Now, what is this miraculous power that he's talking about? Well, that power once again is that rift technology that this creature is able to possess. Leon states that the people of this world once had this miraculous power and they used it to leave this world and enter a one of dreams, which is very interesting. And I have my own theories about where they actually went, and one of those theories could very well be that they went to Dreamland. It is called the Land of Dreams, and it is Dreamland, so maybe that's where they actually wished themselves to go, and they used these spatial rifts in order to get there and left this place back, meaning that this was the original home of everybody that lives on planet Popstar. I'll touch more on this later on another video, but Leon wants this great power and probably wants to come visit or at least go see where the people of this world actually went, so that way the animals of this world can go too, because they feel like they've been left behind by these people, which they kind of have. Kirby's then able to fight Leongar, the king of the beasts, which is actually no match for Kirby, especially with some of the things that he's fought in his past. But halfway through the fight, see something happen in Leongar, his eyes glowing purple and raging with some type of purple aura growing all over him, and giving him the ability to shoot projectiles out of his claws and move across the stage at faster speeds. Eventually, Kirby was able to knock him through the glass wall and all the way into the containment center, where he is eventually knocked out. Kirby is then able to save his friend Elfilis from his imprisonment. But the duo did not win quite yet. With eyes possessed, Leongar wakes up and mentions how his plan is ruined, that he needed labor, and he obviously opened up a vortex to Dreamland in order to bring all the Waddle Dees over in order to run this facility. He needed them and able to power himself up, and he was able to create his own labor force because of it. Forgo awakens from his long slumber and finally breaks out of his containment center and makes his way towards Kirby and Elfilis in this weird sludge form. Consumes the body of Leongar and the rest of the Beast Pack that enter the room and creates this crazy abomination. Kirby then flees the room with Elfilis and eventually comes face to face with this crazy invasive species being Fecto Forgo. Kirby has to run down this hall and dodge all the attacks, with the head of Leon kind of attacking as well, which is just super creepy. You can even see his paw kind of scrape against the wall as it's pushing itself down the hall with all these possessed Beast Pack enemies as well. It's just a very creepy sight for a Kirby game. After winning the fight, Kirby decides to stop at the end of the hall, but it's not too long where he's found a dead end, and Forgo tries to grab Kirby, but eventually grabbing Elfilis. And Elfilis is now consumed and completely making this specimen whole again, and it flies up to the very top of the roof where the final battle will take place. Kirby makes his way up and sees the transformation with his own eyes. Finally, the perfect ultimate life form is here. Fecto Elfilis. This is the very same life form that invaded this world so long ago, and it still, once again, blows my mind that they were able to capture this thing. It can fly, it can teleport, it has a magical staff where it can shoot beams out of it, and it can just cause some brutal damage. So the civilization that used to live here probably had some amazing technology before even having the technology of Elfilis. Not too long into the battle, Kirby's able to make quick work of Fecto Elfilis, which causes him to go on a tyrant, and he changes the whole atmosphere of the battle stage, even his own colors, and begins to get a lot stronger. He's able to open up a dimensional rift and throw in meteorites from space at Kirby, even giant meteors that have tons of debris clumped together. Once again, how in the world were these people able to capture this guy? Kirby then weakens Fecto Elfilis enough to the point to be able to rip Elfilis away from its body, separating it once again. But Fecto Elfilis is still able to maintain its current body form for some reason, probably still having leftover energy. You can see it literally dripping as it's starting to die, but in one final last resort, Fecto Elfilis decides to open up another dimensional rift, which this time decides to send in not a meteorite, not a meteor, but planet Popstar itself. Now it's very weird that Elfilis keeps picking this place. For instance, he actually chose this as the home world to bring his army of Waddle Dees from, and now he's choosing it to be the world that he clashes with this one. which really makes me believe that this is the world that all of those people went to from this land. And it would make sense that he would keep pulling from this land as well, because he obviously would know where these people went using his own powers. So my theory is maybe this is also another kind of retaliation attack from Elfilis to get back at the people that captured him, use his power, and escape to planet Popstar. Well, with Elfilis floating in the sky, causing this destruction to this forgotten land, what does Kirby decide to do to reach him? Turn into a big rig. Yep, drive a big rig on floating buildings all the way up to the sky in order to ram it into Fecto Elfilis, which is just absolutely absurd and definitely a Kirby thing to do. Remember, Elfilin is separated from Fecto Elfilis, which is still weird that this creature is able to have all these amazing immaculate powers, which means as soon as the separation occurred, he probably still has his powers for a certain amount of time. And he definitely uses them, as he's still able to open up separate dimensional rifts from the one that he's causing planet Popstar to fly through, as he's using separate ones to throw different types of debris and meteorites at Kirby, which just shows the pure strength and power of this creature. Finally, Kirby finds himself in a 1v1 battle against Fecto Elfilis and, of course, Kirby's Big Rig Mouth Mode, but Kirby isn't successful until Elfilin steps up and decides to power charge Kirby, pushing the meteorite, breaking through it, and obviously breaking through, completely defeating Fecto Elfilis. Kirby finds himself back on the ground in Dreamland, obviously flying through that dimensional rift that Fecto Elfilis has opened up. But the rift is still open, blowing in objects from both worlds, and they're still heading towards each other to crash and collide. But at the last second, Elfilin flies up in the air and uses a little bit of power that he has, and is able to close the rift, separating the two worlds for good. And it's kind of weird because, like, it cries and really leaves like a sad moment, but then literally like 5 seconds later, I guess it reappears and is saved and Kirby sees him. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. I guess it's really for just more type of post-game stuff, but yeah, Elfilin's still alive. And Kirby and Elfilin were able to save the day. That's pretty much it. You get a little bit of pictures of Kirby coming back, obviously, to the Waddle Dee town and making friends with King Dedede, the Beast Pack, and everybody in total, but there's still so many questions left on the board. Where did those people go? Where is the Forgotten Land in the first place? And just what happened to Leongar? Well, at the very end of the credits, we get to find out that there is a post-game where Leongar is actually taken to some type of secret seclusion by the soul of Fecto Elfilis. We always talk about how Kirby's extra game modes and its secret endings are never really canon, but this time, we never quite had a secondary option for the end. Like, we never had a continuation of the story. It's always been under some type of specific second game mode. So, in this next video, I'll be talking about if this is even canon and what this means for the story as well, as it has some pretty huge implications. So, if you want to see part 2 of the Kirby and the Forgotten Lands ending explained with the Forgo Island of Dreams, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Nintendo in general. Thank you so much for tuning in, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.